Pagan lore versus Christian lore. 4 connections which may surprise you. Merry meet everyone, I'm Witch Hazel, and today we're starting off our Yuletide prep with some discussion about Christmas and how it relates to pagan tradition. I'm chatting about Christmas specifically because it's the only monotheistic religion I'm somewhat familiar with, and because there are some easy associations that we'll get into in just a second. That said, I would love to spend some time at some point delving into how paganism relates to the other top religions in the world. So if any of you have any experience with that and can point me to resources, that would be much appreciated. But for now, on to Christmas. One of the first things most witches learn is to accuse Christianity of appropriating their holidays. While that is technically true, I think we can look at it from a more tolerant point of view, given how much we dislike the intolerance historically shown to us. Let's be the change, people, shall we? 'Tis the season, after all. Let's start with what we know. What most of us know is that the date of December 25th was chosen by the early church to be Jesus' birthday because it corresponded with many of the winter solstice celebrations already in practice at the time. We also know that certain symbolism, like the Christmas tree, holly, and mistletoe, was adopted from pagan tradition. All of these plants were representative of life in some way, whether it was everlasting life, life within death, or the seeming death of winter, or maybe fertility even. Gift-giving was also popular in many pagan traditions. At this difficult time of year, gifts went a long way to brighten the spirit with generosity and a tangible show of blessings to be thankful for. So all of this ties in with feasting and merrymaking. So despite the fact that winter is the time when stores may run low and getting through the season with enough to eat was a real concern for many people, the solstice marked the turning of the tide, when people knew that no matter what, the short days were behind them and the sun was going to start becoming stronger again. Definitely a good reason to celebrate, right? So here are the things that we may not know or are not so familiar with. What don't we know about the connections between pagan and Christian traditions? So far, everything sounds pretty standard, right? Right. And that's where the surprises come in. We often learn generalities without detail. This is usually because the detail isn't necessary, but sometimes it comes in handy to deepen the understanding. I found it hilarious one Christmas season I spent with my Catholic family when I asked about a couple of traditions that I didn't understand the purpose of. Man, everyone I asked gave a different answer. For a group of people who had spent their entire lives active in the church, I was surprised how confused they all got on the details. But that's a rant for another video on the uselessness of being brought up in religion. What I want to share now are some of the details which I think enhance the meaning of the season. So first, let's go back to the idea of life in death. In many pre-Christian mythological systems, winter is explained by a descent into the underworld. Some important figure disappears from the living world, causing the life force of the earth to retreat as well. The figure representing life must go through trials or be rescued in order to avoid being permanently entombed in the underworld, which is representative of death, right? In the classic Wiccan reference, A Witch's Bible by Janet and Stuart Farrar, the authors lean heavily on Robert Graves' idea of the white goddess to represent this life and death theme. I like to relate it to several others. So let's start with the idea of earth as feminine. This would make it easy to think of the inside of the earth or the underworld as Mother Earth's womb, right? And what better symbol do we have of potential life? Additionally, I'm reminded of some research I did back in the day when I was a high school teacher in a Jewish girls' school, 2 of them actually. The girls couldn't clarify for me what the purpose of the mikvah was. That's the ritual bath that Jewish women have to go through each month after their periods. At the time, I was also trying to figure out why Mary, Jesus' mother, had to wait 40 days before presenting her child to the temple. So it all has to do, I figured out, with the close association in each of these scenarios between life and death. Women straddle both in their entire adult lives in the form of childbirth and the massive amounts of blood lost during menses. So let's tie this back in with the feminine underworld and with my favorite Norse goddess, Hel. Hel functions as the Norse Hades, presiding over the underworld. She is depicted as half living and half corpse. But while most people who have heard the myth of the death of Balder, the sun god, know this already, they may not know that she also presides over a pool of rebirth. So here again, we have both references, right? Death and rebirth. I hope you're enjoying this chat so far. If so, please remember to subscribe to the channel if you want to keep up to date on both the everyday activities of witchcraft and learning how to enhance the spiritual side of your practice. Next, let's look at what pagan roots really means. For Christmas, pagan traditions exist around the globe, but realistically, the ones that have most influenced how we view Christmas today come from only a few sources, mainly Norse, Celtic, and Germanic. If we go back to A Witch's Bible again, there are a couple of nods to the Egyptian myth of Horus and Osiris, as well as a tradition in Italy, and we can definitely tie mistletoe back to the Greek pantheon. But essentially, it is these 3 Western Northern European sources that Christmas was modeled around. So my guess would be because these represented the final frontier of early Christendom, and the pagan populations in these regions were known for putting up a pretty good fight, a fight against conversion. So appropriation was the better option for the early church in this case. Here I'm going to point out 2 traditions which I think are the most fun and then wrap things up. Okay, so first is the idea of the Christmas tree. Despite the fact that evergreens had been a symbol of life in the wintertime, since time immemorial, the act of bringing a tree into the home at this time of year didn't become widespread until Prince Albert married Queen Victoria and brought that tradition with him from Germany. Since the Victorians loved to mimic their queen, and the British Empire had been and was still rapidly expanding, this was the catalyst to the previously little-known Germanic tradition. And it was exactly what it needed to become a worldwide staple. Okay, second, we have Santa Claus. We can trace Jolly Saint Nick all the way back to the Norse pantheon and Odin himself, who used to ride through the skies at this time of year, conducting his wild hunt in search of souls. Nick, I'm told, was a nickname for Odin, though I haven't found a reference for that yet, so if anyone has one, please share it in the comments. And from there, from that nickname, we got Saint Nicholas, and later Santa Claus. And there you have it, everyone. A brief comparison of a few holiday traditions shared by both pagans and Christians. I hope you enjoyed it. If so, please remember to subscribe to the channel to make sure that you don't miss upcoming videos showcasing both the practical and spiritual sides of witchcraft and how to fuse the two. I have some very fun videos coming up this month for the Yuletide season that I'm looking forward to sharing with you. So until the next one, everyone, blessed be.